Good morning, guys. And our topic for today is why debt counseling. And the reason I'm redoing this why debt counseling is I'm just going to go more into depth about debt counseling because I had a couple of people asking me and they want to know more about debt counseling. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the removal of debt reviews, the do's and the don'ts about the removal of debt review. So let's just start off, and I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just bear with me. And let me just move all of this out the way. So why debt counseling? So how does debt counseling work? So let's go with a debt review, otherwise known as debt counseling, is basically the process where consumers are over indebted. Now, debt review and debt counseling is the same thing. One is an application, and the other one is when you deal with a debt counselor, which you go basically doing a one-on-one with a debt counseling individual. Companies that who's advertising that they're running a debt counseling company is basically not acting in good faith, according to my opinion, because they're working with call center agents. A debt counselor in Section 44 of the National Credit Act says only a debt counselor can work with a consumer. So whenever you want to go into debt counseling, always make sure that you speak to the debt counselor and always ask for his NCR-DC number. Get his NCR-DC number and go do some homework on Hello Peter, phone the NCR and find out if they're happy with this debt counselor. This is what I would do if I had to go into debt counseling. So the consumer will be placed under debt review in order to protect them from the creditors. Now, bear in mind, if there's legal action already been taken, that account may or may not go into debt review. So my advice to anybody that wants to go into debt counseling, always make sure that if you know you're going to go through a difficult time, go and make an appointment with a debt counselor. So how do we go about it? Go onto the NCR database, go look for a debt counselor, look for a debt counselor in your area. Do not work through a call center debt counselor, because if you ever have a problem, you're always going to speak to some form of agent who's just purely chasing commission and not looking after you as a consumer. And just make sure that the information you get from the debt counselor is correct and the information you give to the debt counselor is correct as well. As I said, always deal with a registered debt counselor. Never deal with a call center debt counseling company. The debt counselor is basically negotiate with your creditors to work out an affordability or an affordable installment. So how does that work? Let's say, for instance, you earn 10,000 Rand a month and your debt per month is say call it 5,000 Rand per month. And your running expenses and everything else comes to 8,000 Rand, but you've only got a net salary of 5. The debt counsel will take your credit agreements and work out an affordability plan so they can reduce the installment, they can extend the term, and certain creditors will allow you to reduce the interest rates. It doesn't state in the Act that the debt counselor can reduce interest. It's only the credit provider that will accept if they are prepared to reduce the interest rate. The creditors have to abide by the National Credit Act. And the interesting part is very few credit providers is not following Section 3 of the National Credit Act, which speaks about to be fair in the credit market, to be fair in the consumer, And this is where the problem comes in. All they're interested in is giving as many loans as possible. But when you go under debt counselling, they're the ones that crying foul. You've got the right with your debt counsellor to look what is the best solution for you. Remember, a debt counsellor has to look after your interest, but he has also to look after the interest of the credit provider. So he has to look at both parties, because lots of times a consumer will use the debt counselling for his own personal gain due to reckless borrowing, where the credit provider on the other side will be in for reckless credit. So be aware before you go into debt counselling. So what is the process? The process is the consumer will fill in a Form 16, which is the application for debt review. So the Form 16 is your name, your surname. If you're married in community of property, your spouse has to go in, because in community of property means you are one. You cannot exclude your wife or your spouse or your husband. Both parties, when they're married in community of property, has to go into debt review. The debt counsellor will do an assessment and send out the 17.1. The 17.1 is requesting a certificate of balance from the creditors. Now, the 17.1, lots of times you'll go to a company and they say, we're looking for a 17.1 to prove that you're under debt review. This is what it is. So what you have to do is, if you want to apply for a loan, or somebody, when a debt collector phones you and says, listen, I'm under debt review, you can request a 17.1 from your debt counsellor, and you can forward it to the debt collector or attorney or the credit provider. Now, what is quite interesting, according to my knowledge, and I understand the Act quite well, what they call the COB, the Certificate of Balance. Now, lots of times that certificate of balance is incorrect. So that's why I say to anybody who goes under debt counselling to make sure that the statement you've got is correct from a credit providers, and that the certificate of balance matches your credit agreement. Now, the reason why I say that, now let's take my situation for instance. I just proved that the TFG group, Fushini, will add debt collecting fees and interest on top of that. So how do the debt counsellor know that the certificate of balance is correct by receiving it from a third party, which I won't mention names, that information is correct? So that's why it's very important when you go through your assessment and your PDA statement to make sure that the certificate of balances is correct and it matches your credit agreement. The debt counsellor has to abide by Regulation 55, do the assessment and look for reckless credit. Now, what is Regulation 55? Regulation 55, and 99.9% of all debt counsellors, credit providers, debt collectors do not understand Regulation 55. That states that a debt counsellor or a credit provider must make sure that the information is correct. So if a debt counsellor wants to look at reckless credit, it has to look for the original contract, the original quotation, the statements, and to identify Section 81(2) of the National Credit Act, which speaks about reckless credit. So lots of times, the debt counsel will charge you 1,700 Rand for reckless credit, but they never followed the procedures of Regulation 55. Guys, if you're under debt counseling or you look at there's somebody that charged you the reckless credit fee, I do suggest speak to the NCR and lodge a formal complaint, which is a Form 29. After assessment, the debt counsellor can finally declare you over indebted, which will then send out the 17.2. The 17.2 will show that you are over indebted or you are not over indebted, and they will issue a 17W, which means they declare you not over indebted. But a lot of debt counselors will just put through the 17.2, and then what they will do is load you as a C status on the debt help system of the NCR, which then lets you on the credit bureau. So on the C status means you have to go to court to declare you're not over indebted, because lots of times the debt counselor never followed the procedures of the National Credit Act. So what you have to do is look at the assessments, see what the debt counselor has done. And the sad part is, as I come back, the debt counseling call centers uses staff that is not even properly qualified to do the work, and they just list you because they got somebody that will just capture everything on the NCRDC debt help system, loads it to the credit bureau. Thank you very much. I got my debt counseling fee, I got my legal fees. And what about, they don't worry about the consumer. So when the consumer has been declared over indebted, the negotiation starts with the credit providers. So the debt counselor will send a proposal to the credit providers. The credit providers will tell him, no, we want extra 50 Rand. The debt counselor says, can you maybe reduce the interest? And so it's going between the credit providers and the debt counselor. Now, if there's no happy medium, the debt counselor will then put your file into court, and they've got 60 working days between them and the creditors, and then they have to put it in court, as I said, and then the magistrate has to decide if the credit providers are acting in good faith, that the consumer acting in good faith, that the debt counselor acting in good faith, and he will then grant the order or not. So let's go into the court processes. There are two processes which can be followed. If all the creditors agree to the installments, the order can be granted by the NCT, the National Consumer Tribunal. Now, there's a particular big debt counselling company in Cape Town. They love their advertising. So if you will see your NCT matter has been granted, and I've seen so many times that they've added in their proposals or in their PDA statements, funeral benefits, additional credit life, even a credit report. All of that is not following the procedures of the National Credit Act, because they're making themselves a preferred creditor and earning commissions. Then they still charge you anything from 3,000 to 9,000 Rand to put the case into court by the tribunal, which all the creditors has already agreed to the installment. Now, under the NCT, according to my knowledge, I think it's a maximum of 850 Rand that they can charge. But there's another problem that I want to know, and nobody can answer this, but I've got an answer from the Law Society. It says, any person acting as an attorney charging legal fees must be registered as an attorney by the Law Society. So why are they charging legal fees and they're not attorneys? So I suggest anybody that's under debt counselling and money has not been paid directly through the PDA to an attorney, but directly to the debt counsellor, I would say lodge a complaint with the Law Society. I do believe that we need to start cleaning up the industry. If the creditors oppose the amount in which an offer was presented to them, only the magistrate can do the following: grant the order and say either, yes, Mr. Credit Provider, you didn't act in good faith, or you're silly of not providing us with the right information. The debt counsellor asked you for ritual contracts, but you never brought it to court. So therefore, you're not acting in good faith, and a magistrate can grant the order. Or the magistrate can declare the counts reckless and refer it to the NCR, and the case can in sine die till they get an answer from the NCR, or the debt count, or the magistrate can withdraw the matter, as we had one now. Guys, this is now very important. What I'm going to say to you is, I'm sitting with a particular client which is driving a vehicle of over the 400,000. He was in a car accident. And the magistrate says he has to sell the car because it's a luxury vehicle. Now, you and I know if we're going to trade a 400,000 Rand vehicle in, we're only going to get 200,000, but he still owes 200,000 Rand. But we cannot fight the court system. So now he's sitting without a car, he cannot get a smaller car, and he's sitting with a total debt of 200,000. So lots of times I would suggest when you come into a situation like this, if you've got 2 or 3 vehicles, or sometimes you might have a boat or you might have a jet ski, get rid of it. It will just help your claim, because the magistrates are getting very sticky. I just want to go back that most attorneys and debt counsellors do not follow Regulation 55, and the credit providers walks away smiling, which places a consumer in a worst case scenario. Now, I'm not going to go in too much with this, because I will do a special Zoom when these accounts gets handed over to a debt collector and attorney, how to defend these matters, and that can maybe help you out by taking on the debt collectors as well as attorneys as well as the credit providers by following certain sections of the National Credit Act, the Council of Debt Collectors Act, as well as the Magistrates Court Act. So why don't you join us like we're doing now, part of the International Mastermind Group. And yeah, we can help you track your daily goals. Doesn't matter if it's a budget or additional income. And yeah, we can support each other, especially now we're back into COVID level 4, and see how we can help you grow your income for you to become debt free. Doesn't matter if you're going to sell samosas, doesn't matter if you're going to do jerseys or do network marketing, affiliated marketing, write a blog, or just getting your YouTube likes up or subscription up. They can start generating an income. And yeah, we can help you to find leads using different social media platforms. So, and we've got many more things that we can help you as there's a lot of stuff that we can help you with to grow your business, work from home, especially now with lockdown 4. I'm going to do from Monday, I'm doing a 30-day quest, which each week will be to do with habits, self-development, and it's 20 minutes. Plus, I'll show you how to track your affirmation, visualization, and goal settings. So guys, get as many people on as possible for Monday that we can help them to grow through this trying times. Guys, thanks a lot for joining. And I just want to say thank you. If there's anything else you need, contact me via WhatsApp, direct message me on Facebook. And guys, have an awesome day. Thank you.